Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. What's happening, Ignite Intimacy community? This is Miss Laura Aisha, and we are bringing you another powerful episode here. I am very excited to have Ali Binazir on the line with us today. Ali and I met at Uncharted in Berkeley last year around this time, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And it was cool. Like, we kind of connected at the end of the conference. There were some people hanging around, and he was with, I think, maybe another person I had met during that day, and a bunch of us walked over to the after party, and we started chatting about all sorts of different things. And it came up sometime in that conversation about the book that you wrote, The Tao of Dating.
That is correct.
Yes. So I'm excited. We have had a handful of conversations recently about dating. I actually just recorded a conversation about ageism and online dating. And so there's a lot of juicy stuff to talk about here.
I certainly hope so, yes.
So tell our audience a little bit about, when did the Tao of Dating come out?
Well, I first wrote it in 2009, and it was a few years after I wrote the book for men. So the book for men is called The Dao of Dating, The Thinking Man's Enlightened Guide to Success with Women. And I thought, well, considering how 80% of people who actually read books are women, maybe I should write one for them too. So that one's called The Dao of Dating, The Smart Woman's Guide to Being Absolutely Irresistible. And,
nice.
Yeah, it all came out of kind of hanging out with my old Harvard classmates, and, we're in our 30s, and some of them had already been through a divorce or two, and, had relationships that, were okay, not great. And I just saw a lot of this happening. And, you had these fabulous women who were like super smart, educated, really sweet, and had all their life together except for this one aspect. So I'm like, what is going on? What is happening here? And how can we make it better? And one particular meeting that I recount in the book was with two of these classmates of mine, in which, we start talking about this one girl's, her new boyfriend. She'd been divorced a few years ago, and now she has this new boyfriend. Oh, he's so handsome, he's so sexy, and he's got this great, European accent. He's a starving artist, so I kind of support him. He lives with me, but it's okay because the sex is so great, and I love him, blah, blah. And, in the wash, it comes out that, her daughter fell down the stairs a couple of weeks ago and cracked her head open, and, she was totally distraught. She's like, oh my God, I need help. She calls up the boyfriend and says, hey, I need you. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm afraid of blood. I'm like, wait. This bum is living with you. You're supporting his sorry ass, and he's not even willing to show up, which is the only thing he can actually do. So I said, based on that one data point, boy's got to go. And a couple of weeks later, I was gratified to receive an email from her saying, hey, thanks for the pep talk. And I actually asked him to move out and blah, blah. And by the way, please don't tell my parents, because if you tell them, they're going to kill him. But for the past 18 months, he was also beating me up. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, whoa, okay. So here's like this Harvard educated woman, really nice, great family background, has money, is successful, and yet she was stuck in this terrible relationship. So if something like this is happening to her, it must be happening to thousands of other people out there. So that's when writing the book became more than just an exercise of writing a book, and something that was more of a mission. It's like, hey, look, if I can help even one person snap out of it and grasp her true power, remember her true power, then this exercise will have been worthwhile. And, a few years later, it was the highest rated dating book on Amazon for 4 years, and tens of thousands of women have read it. And I still get emails from people saying that it's been useful. So, which is better than being run out of town. So, which can happen if you're a guy stupid enough to write a dating book for women. So
yeah, exactly. Well, so the first book was written for thinking men?
The Thinking Man's Enlightened Guide to Success with Women. Yeah, so that was the first book.
Well, and so what like thinking men, like the thinking mans, who are thinking men? What categorizes a man as a thinking man?
Well, basically, I wrote the book for nerdy kids because that's who I was, and and back once again, this comes out of my experiences at Harvard. This time as an advisor, here are these kids, and they're just really nice guys. They've got their act together. They're doing great academically. They're sweet. They've got great families, and they can't land a date once a year, even though they are surrounded by single women who live with them, go to class, and eat with them every day. I'm like, wow, okay, Houston, we've got a problem here. So, and it was an easy jump to recognize that I was one of them, and I had those exact same problems, probably worse than they did. I mean, I had a girlfriend through all of college for just a few months, and so. Had my first kiss at age 19. So this guy, as I understand the dilemma of a late bloomer, but the idea of the thinking man is like, hey, there's plenty of nice guys out there who think that dating is this insurmountable obstacle. It's really difficult, but there's a bunch of louts out there who've got a whole bunch of women after them. So what are they doing differently, right? So, and the idea was to present the solution such that it's easy to follow. So it's like, hey, you do this step by step by step, and you can get results. And also doing it in a way that's one of the reasons why I call it the Thinking Man's Guide is because some guys think, I'll learn these pickup techniques and then I'll have women and, I'll get laid and then I'll be happy. And that's not how it works. And it's important to keep in mind that you need to get your own house in order first, and then you can have a decent relationship. And that goes for men and women too. So the notion that somehow the relationship, having a girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife, is going to solve all your life problems is a gigantic fallacy. So it's like saying, I have the new running shoes, now I can go run a marathon. It actually first you need to train a little bit. So otherwise you might get hurt. Actually, you will get hurt. So that's kind of the basis of these books, which is to go about this stuff methodically and with open eyes, and first focusing on who you are, who you really are, what truly fulfills you, as opposed to what you think will make you happy, and then the methods that will get you to that point of fulfillment, to the goal that you want, as opposed to what you think will work. And for guys, what they think will work is like, I'll buy her flowers, I'll be like super duper nice to her. And I can tell you, as a flower buyer and super duper nice guy for 27 years, the first 27 years of my life, that's not what worked. So, and for women, it's like, I'll shape my eyebrows right, or I'll make sure I wear these, jeans that fit me really well. And that's not either. So, the idea is to go at what your aim is fulfillment. And what is your fulfillment? Figure out what that is. And that's usually something along the lines of companionship and fit, as opposed to, say, the shiniest object in the room or, on your online app. And for better or for worse, the way we're rigged as humans doesn't necessarily serve us well when it comes time to making good choices for ourselves.
Well, I'm just so curious about so many things right now. Because
I gave you a bunch of fodder here. So.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. Okay, so we tend to focus a lot of our conversations leaning, I'd say, more towards women. And so I'm really interested in just a couple of things with regards to the first book that you put out for men, for thinking men. And, I know a couple of really, really brilliant guys who are just so sweet and so amazing. And they're just like, they're single. They have trouble finding women to date, and they don't know what they're doing wrong or what they could do better. And so I'm just curious, what was the discovery process like for you? Was it something that you actually began to play with in your own life and experience and solve for, and then you wrote a book about it? Like, tell us more about that.
Yeah, I was as clueless as those Harvard kids myself, if not more so. And so, first kiss at age 19, virgin until age 23, and really didn't know what to do around women except just, be a sweet guy and look into them longingly and go, wow, you're so pretty, or something silly like that, right? That doesn't get you very far. So, and what happened was towards the end of medical school, I found out about some books and material that my cousin had found, and also learned some stuff during medical school about communication. And I realized, oh, wow, there's this whole other world of communicating with women that actually works. And then it kind of opened my eyes. I noticed these guys who were successful with women, that's what they were doing. I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty simple. And so a lot of it was just getting out of this orthodoxy of be nice. And it goes against so much of your training as basically a good person, that what actually works with women is you tease them. You tease them relentlessly, and then they will follow you around. And it took me many, many years to realize that. And you know who else hates hearing that is women, except that it always works. So,
talk to us about teasing, because, there is definitely an element of teasing that helps to build anticipation, curiosity, and mystery.
But it goes much deeper than that. And the thing is, we are hierarchical creatures. And we used to live in these bands of about 150 people. And like other primates, everybody knows what the pecking order is. And here's the thing, surprise for you, women are not necessarily attracted to subordinate men. Go figure, right? They want the powerful guy. They want the guy who runs the show. They want the chieftain. They want the guy who basically has status, money, and power, and is at the very least, higher in ranking than her in the tribe, right? And if you're out there going, oh, wow, you're so great, will you please like me? That's immediately conveying that you are subordinate to her, right? Whereas if you say something like, didn't you wear that dress yesterday too, right? So this is subtle, right? You're not being mean, but you're saying, hey, I see you, and I have discernment, and I am slightly teasing you, and I'm holding to a high standard, right? And that completely changed the dynamic. And on a certain level, it's conveying that, at the very least, I am not below you in the hierarchy. If I can pick on you, right? Yeah. Now, that can be taken to toxic levels, and there are examples of that playing out in the national media right now. So all this has become very, very touchy, and even talking about this, but probably endangers my life. However, that said, it's still what works. There's a certain kind of communication. And, the most useless piece of advice that people give to guys when it comes to having dating success with women is be confident. Well, what the hell does that mean? That doesn't actually give anybody a roadmap. And be confident is about as useful as be tall. Well, gee, gosh, wow, okay.
I was born 5'2". Or just go do a slam dunk. I mean, these are not useful pieces of advice. The useful piece of advice actually gives you steps that are practical and achievable. And once you do one, you get to the next one. And that's how I've structured all of my books. And for guys, the way to appear as if you are confident is to speak in a certain manner and ask questions in a certain way. And above all, to be genuinely curious. And the idea is that, hey, who is this person? Is this person a good fit for me? And there's nothing malicious about this, right? You're not, but it's the difference between being the job interviewer and being the job interviewee. And as soon as you assume the stance of the interviewer, then everything changes. And people just starting to try to please you for some strange reason. And it's all because you adopted the stance of being the coach, the leader, the interviewer. So, and that's exactly what I tell women as well. I say, hey, look, you own the show here, okay? You are the thing that they are looking for, and what you're looking for is a good fit. Is this person going to be a good addition to my life? Are we going to get along? And therefore, it's important to be discerning and have questions ready and ask them in the spirit of inquiry. And if you want to, make it slightly teasing or something, hey, that works both ways. Yep.
But that it's the whole idea of real power, what I call tiger power versus flower power. You want to know about tiger power and flower power?
Yes.
Okay, so a flower doesn't have a whole lot of power. A flower just kind of sits there and looks pretty. That's all it can do, right? And it can maybe turn towards the sun, maybe open its petals or close its petals, but that's pretty much it.
Well, a flower can also intoxicate you with its scent.
a flower can also have scent, right? But if you walk by it quickly, that's it. You don't smell the scent. Or if you're in a hurry, you don't hear this. And the point is, the flower has a certain amount of power, but it's a static kind of power. And it doesn't go very far. Tiger power, on the other hand, is the tiger sees something it likes, and it goes there, and it gets it. Without apology, without hesitation, it does its tiger thing. So, and roughly speaking, this breaks down to yang power, that's tiger power, and yin power. Yin is feminine power, and yang is masculine power. Okay, so if you are hoping that because you curled your hair just right and did your eyebrows and are wearing the right kind of jeans, that guy's going to come and talk to you, that's flower power. If you just step up to him and say hi, that's tiger power. So, and what I advocate is for women to embrace more of their tiger power. Don't reject the flower power. That's still good. However, you also have tiger power, and it's kind of what makes the world go round. So let's focus on how we can have that, because that's the power that cannot be taken away from you. But, you know, let's say you have a perfect butt today. Tomorrow, butt fashions may change. Your butt may no longer be perfect. So that is power that can be taken away from you, right? Or you just had your eyebrows ripped out and tattooed on in a, you know, square, terrifying fashion, which I see these days. I'm like, what are people doing to their eyebrows? What is going on here? And tomorrow, that may go out of style. And now you have no eyebrows and you have these dark tattoos instead. And suddenly that's gone. So what cannot be taken away from you is this. And the other is, there's the 3-word summary of the Tao of Dating, which I tell women, which is be the light. 3 words, be the light. And, you know, so much of dating is about, am I enough? I've received maybe 5,000 letters from women the past few years, and all of them are the same question. The same question, that one question is, am I enough? And as long as that is the question you are trying to answer, then the answer to that question is clearly not. You are. If you don't think you're enough, why should the rest of the world think you're enough, since you're the world's expert on you, right? But as soon as you go beyond that and you go into, hey, here's all these people here. How can I make their day? How can I make this person in front of me light up like a million candles? How can I make this person feel 50 feet tall? And it doesn't have to be a guy. It could be anybody, right? But the power to light up the world around you is something that everybody has, male or female, and that nobody can take away from you.
That's
and
right.
Yet so few people exercise it. And when I've been in the presence of that, I'm like, wow, I'm just like overwhelmed. My whole body just light up. I'm like, wow, what a powerful woman. And yet there it is. It's free. And so few people exercise the power of genuine appreciation, of saying, hey, you know, that presentation you gave, that was so good. I was so moved. I learned so much. Tell me more. Or, wow, this outfit you put together, you know, so much care and good taste must have gone into it. So anytime you do that, you give power to other people, you give power to yourself. And as a result, what's going to happen is you're going to light up, because we're hypersocial beings. And therefore, when you make other people feel good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you're lit up. Everybody's like, hey, who's that glow in the dark girl? I want to be around that. So you've solved like all the problems in one fell swoop. You know, you're no longer lonely. You have choice. And you, most importantly, you feel great.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting, this whole thing where I have had challenges, just an experience of being mostly single in my adult life. And I've talked about this a bunch on the podcast. Like, I get tons of attention from men, lots of friends and lovers, you know, but like really only a handful of relationships in the last 20 years that were anything longer than just like casual dating over a couple of months, right? And I've met so many amazing, smart, talented, successful, beautiful, brilliant women who are also single and struggling to, you know, get involved with men over the long term.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you had a similar experience in realizing there are all these, you know, beautiful and brilliant women, successful women that you know. And so what's the deal?
What's the deal is they keep me in business. This is great. Kidding, but true. I mean, look, if there weren't a problem, then this book would not exist.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things happening in my observations. So first of all, there's been a very tangible relegation of love and relationships into some backwater of the optional part of life. right? And when you're working hard as a partner in a law firm or raising money for your startup and just being, a powerful woman, it's easy to let this relationship thing drop down to a lower priority.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only going to work if you make it your number one priority, because it is. As far as all the research done on happiness goes, including a 70-year longitudinal study of these people from the Harvard class of 1929, 1930, 1931, called the Grand Study, and a bunch of other really powerful studies as well. The number one determinant of your long-term health, happiness, well-being, everything is the strength of your love relationships.
Wow.
And people think that, like sleep, this is some kind of optional thing that they can do later, and also like sleep, that does not work at all. And so the idea is you have to make this a priority, right? And so that's one aspect. So if it's not a priority, it's not going to work. And number two is, especially in these days, there's a certain disposability of human relations. And what I've noticed is that people treat human relationships like an app. Like you're on Uber, you call it up, it comes and takes you where you want to go, and then you're done, right? And you're on these apps and you're swiping by people's names and pictures, giving each person maybe like 2 seconds of your time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, courtship used to take time. Like one of the best books I've read in the past couple of years is the memoir by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, called Shoe Dog. And there's it's a beautiful book by him. The guy, obviously, he missed a career as an amazing writer. In the interim, became a multi-billionaire. But hey, great book. And the story basically, it goes something like, he's teaching this class at the university in order to support his entrepreneurial venture, and part of the deal he made with his dad. In the class, there's this really pretty girl who's also super smart, who sits right up front. And he doesn't know what to do. And she's always like kind of making eyes at him. And so he finally says, "Hey, why don't you come and be my accountant in my startup?" And she says, "Okay." And, they work in there, every day for like 6 months. Finally, after 6 months, he gathers up the courage to ask her out to dinner. She says yes, and from there on, it goes on. And here, we're giving people like 1 second, swipe, done, right?
Yeah.
And so people aren't taking time. And if you think about all the times when you've met a new friend and you look back on that first meeting, there's never a sign that's saying this person's going to be your best friend. I mean, it's like, it's awkward. Later on, you have all these other impressions that supersede whatever came first. And you're like, wow, based on that, would have never been your friend, right? But that's how you develop real relationships, is through repeated casual contact, and you kind of see what people are really like. And a date is the worst situation in which to get an accurate assessment of what somebody's like. It's completely contrived, and everybody's kind of trying to put their best foot forward. So like Chris Rock says, like, "Hey, I'll send my agent to meet your agent, right? My representative to meet your representative." And for the first 3 months of it, you have no idea what the other person. And it's like, it's not going to go anywhere. How the hell do you know? That is not information you have access to.
Yeah.
And maybe as a byproduct of all things, one trend that I've noticed, as I'm also a single man, is that just the level of civility of discourse has just gone down so low that it's just really hard to make a connection. So, these days, I meet somebody at a party and, we really hit it off. I mean, as far as I can tell, we seem to be hitting it off, and we have friends in common. And then, maybe a few days later, I send out an invitation and I don't even get a no. I just get no response at all.
Wow.
So, and this happens over and over and over again. So, it's possible a horrible person, but it's also possible that there's just a general degradation of civility and a willingness to communicate with people. And to the ladies out there, I say, look, if a guy actually sticks his neck out and has the courage to invite you to something, at least give him the courtesy of a straight no. Because to say nothing at all is to invalidate his existence entirely, because that's what you do to, like, the homeless person on the street. So whenever you don't respond, you're poisoning the well for yourself and for him, and it can have really bad consequences. Some of these guys get depressed, some of them go crazy, right? So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. And one is that I know for me, I'm just overwhelmed. Like, more and more, it's taking me longer to get back to people because there are several inboxes that I'm checking, not just my email, but It's
Yeah.
like my text message, I consistently have like 30 to 40 text messages to check. And
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm just overwhelmed. And this thing around not responding to someone, it's like this soul aching thing that occurs like over and over and over again. Also, as a I date men. So, I primarily date men. And I've just had this experience over and over again where I spend time with a man and like, there's no follow up. There's no like, hey, it was great to spend time with you last night, or like, I really enjoyed, kicking it, or, anything. And then like
Yeah. No,
a couple of days later, I'll just finally send a text because I follow up. Like, it's just part of who I am. Like, I don't like things just sort of hanging in the balance. It feels incomplete, and
yeah.
so that it impacts like every time each of us either doesn't know how to say no, or no thank you, or like, really, I'm not feeling it, or like, wow, it was really awesome to spend time with you last night, or listen, thanks so much for the date. I just, I don't think this is a good fit for me. Like, just being really an adult about it. It does impact, everyone who experiences that. It impacts, and it impacts like I know for me, it impacts my relationship to being out there, to putting myself out there,
Absolutely.
to dating.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know it's not just me, because I've heard other people say the same story, and I've been actually keeping track. And of the last 12 times, a friend, and these are people who I've known for a long time, but the last 12 times friends have requested my company, 8 of the 12, they didn't show up, or they cancel at the last minute. And these are people who asked for my company.
Wow.
So there's something about society where everything has become provisional, because you have these things called cell phones, and you can text people and say, oh, sorry, something came up. And I'm like, no, something did not come up. You committed. I set this time aside. Show your butt up. Make the other thing go away. Show up at this. And in med school, we learned there are 3 emergencies in life: airway, breathing, circulation. So if you're not choking and your lungs aren't punctured and you're not bleeding out, then you can show up.
Well, it's got a lot to do with integrity, right?
Yeah. And in a place like, and there's also just endemic factors too. Like in Los Angeles, the traffic just makes everything unpredictable. So you say you're going to show up at 7:00. There's no way for you to actually know that you're going to show up at 7:00. So everything just kind of becomes this big fuzz of provisionality. And if you become the one person who's like this rock of reliability, of like, hey, when I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, then that just makes your brand rise head and shoulders above the other person, and think of it as an opportunity. It's like, hey, and also if you express that in your relationship with men or women, say, hey, look, I think you're pretty cool, and I'm going to share this with you because you seem like the kind of person who appreciate this, but these are my rules. And, if I go out with someone, then I follow up with them like this, this, and this. And if not, just let each other know, and that way you can move along. But I think it's really important to extend that courtesy. How do you feel about that? Right? So you put that out there, and that goes back to the whole notion of what's a woman's real power. And one of the woman's real power aspects of woman's real power is she can set a standard that men can rise to.
That's right.
So if she's willing to put up with whatever a guy does in order to get that little smidgen of love, then you'll get in some twisted and deficient form that doesn't really nourish you, right? But if you say, hey, look, I think I'm better off being alone, being single, than dealing with this. This is the standard that I'm willing to accept. Then that's when the good guys show up. It's like, oh wow, here's a woman who actually has standards, and then they will want to please you. They will want to be the guy who actually rises to the challenge and prove that they can be the one, as opposed to going for what you. So it's a lot about getting the settling for what you can get versus going for what you want. In order to go for what you want, it's important to know what it is that you want, have a clear picture of that, and then to not compromise.
Well, I'm curious for you as a man. So do you date women?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as like a conversation, what would be sort of like how do I want to label this? Like sexy or sweet or just like intriguing way of a woman asking about like, what's your follow-up plan? Like, what do you have a follow-up game? You know, like, am I going to hear from you tomorrow? Or are you going to follow up? Like, because that's in my mind, I'm thinking that when I go out with a man, and I've started to have more men follow up, but there's still like, I mean, I've got different men around, and there are still a majority of them whose follow-up game is like weak at best or non-existent.
Well, Ms. Laura, what do you want? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I would just love to see that a man would, you know, check in the next day with a text or a phone call. Like, I've gone on a couple of dates with this guy in New York, and I just said to him, I was like, how come you haven't called me yet? You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, I could pick up the phone and call him. I'm an alpha female. So like, I will pick up the phone and call people sometimes. I will be the one following up, but I'm trying to move out of that paradigm so much, because I'm like learning about allowing men to come to me, and instead of me always being the one showing up.
Yeah.
And so I would love to just be dating men who like actually just think of me and want to reach out and just say, hey, it was lovely to spend time with you last night.
Okay. Well, first of all, bravo to you for asking for what you wanted from a man, because you just did that, right? And if you can do it with me, you can do it with the guy you're on a date with too. You can just say, hey, how about this? And that's okay. And you're basically expressing what you want, what your needs are, and you say, well, I would feel really good about this if you did this. If you did that, that would be really useful. One method that I like is to put a deadline on it. You say, hey, look, really enjoyed our talk, and I don't know what your timeline is generally for, you know, responding and following up, but if I don't hear from you in 3 days, I'll assume that this is not on anymore, or 2 days, or whatever it is, right? So that way you can release your mind and go and do your own thing, right? And the technique that I talk about in my writing is priming the pump. So the idea is that as a woman, you don't want to be taking too much of the lead, right? Because that's the job of the guy, supposedly. So you got the yang, you got the yin, you got the dance floor of life. The guy's job is to kind of, you know, lead. If your woman starts taking the lead on the dance floor, it just looks funny. But most important, this is your test to see whether a guy can take the lead, whether he's willing to take the lead, and how he takes the lead, right? So if you constantly take the lead, then you'll never find out whether this guy has any lead in him at all. So it's important to do that. At the same time, guys are afraid, right?
Yeah.
Because women are intimidating creatures. They can cut you down and say, you know, that was a stupid joke, or your suit looks funny, or something, right? And then the guy has to shrink back, you know, tuck his tail between his legs and crawl back home. And so what you want to do is you want to kind of give the guy a little opening. You want to give the guy a little invitation and say, hey, it is okay if you do this. In fact, I would like it if you did this. So on the dance floor, you see like these professional dancers, they do like a little wrist twitch, and the guy's like, oh, that means she wants to be twirled in this way. It's like a little reminder, right? And it's not saying, hey, why haven't you done this yet? Or the lady, you know, lifting the guy up instead of the guy lifting the lady up. But it's just that little subtle lead. That's priming the pump. And that's the idea of using a little bit of yang energy of your own to elicit the yang energy in him, so you can relax back into the yin, into the feminine, right? So you can see, you can observe whether he takes the lead. So the priming of the pump in this case would be asking a question like, so when do you usually like to follow up, right? So you're not saying, hey, call me tomorrow, otherwise it's over, right?
Yeah.
You're just saying, hey, what's your timeline, brother, right? And then once he says it, he's like, oh, okay. So it's actually a very subtle way of issuing a command by a question, right? But you're priming the pump, and you're saying, you're sitting back to watch it, is this guy going to step up? And you can use that question methodology all over the dating thing. You can also, you know, if you haven't heard from after 2 days after you've made out, you say, so when are you going to ask me out again, right? So you're not asking him out. You're not saying, hey, I'm taking you out to dinner. You're saying, hello, big boy. Girl here is interested. Hurry up.
Well, and what do you think about, you know, if he hasn't reached out, he's not interested?
You don't know that until he's actually said that. So one of my policies is, especially in this era of missed emails and texts and whatever, and everybody's busy and has 13 different email accounts, is you don't actually have a no until you have a no. So if you're interested, keep asking until you get a solid no.
Got it.
And as a woman, you are less likely to get accused of sexual harassment than a guy, so go for it.
Okay, gosh, there's so many things we could touch on here. No pun intended.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.